In this conversation with Sandy Smith, who is the social media content manager at Yoda One Games, we covered a lot of things: content strategy, community building, KOL marketing, a bit about UA, and quite a bit more. And I can say it's one of the most insight-packed discussions I have ever had. I would go as far as to say it is a crash course in social media marketing for mobile games. So, enjoy the conversation and don't forget to follow us to see more conversations like it. Social media marketing is a pretty broad category, right?
Right.
And I think just to set the groundwork, just to sort of have a bit of a foundation, we could talk about how it relates to mobile gaming specifically. Why is social media marketing specifically important for mobile gaming?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, mobile games are on your phone, right?
Right.
Social media, you spend most of your time on your phone. So
I was
it
going to
kind
say
of all
fax
goes
machine.
hand in hand. Right, yeah. So, I mean, of course, you can watch YouTube on your computer, but for the most part, you're spending most of your time on Instagram or TikTok or even Facebook. You spend mostly on your phone.
Fax machine. Oh,
So
phone, yeah.
it kind of all goes hand in hand. Let's say this is maybe kind of a broad example, but like if you were to see a commercial on TV, like that's going to be a little bit more effort to download the mobile game versus if you see an ad on social media platform, because then it's just a click of a button.
Right. Right. So that's sort of the foundation of it then, right? The foundation is it's the mode. It's that it's on your phone. Both are on your phone.
Right. Right.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Okay, fair enough. But I mean, is there anything else in terms of maybe foundational stuff that we could say as as someone who works in social media marketing at a mobile gaming publisher? Is there something that we could say maybe that would help us get an understanding of the landscape of social media marketing? And then I think we can dive into some specifics.
Why social media is so important because it can do so much for a mobile game
Right.
or even not a mobile game, for PC games, for an Xbox game. Um, Social media is how the world communicates these days.
So when we're talking about it, we're including things that sort of could be on the edge of, let's say, because you wouldn't consider. I mean, WhatsApp as, I guess, is it a messaging platform or is it social media? So we're going to go with the broader sort of definition of social media, right?
Yes, I think that is the safe thing because a lot of things can fall under social media and then you can divide it further from there.
What are some of the challenges that you see for developers who may be trying to do this, but due to different circumstances, it's a challenge? What are some of those challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, that is a great question. The first one is it's incredibly time consuming.
Okay.
Um, Planning content, creating content, trying to figure out what type of content, and we're just talking about content, like that in itself is super time consuming. Finding these KOLs is not exactly easy. Finding the right fit for your brand, um, reaching out to them, also working with them is a tricky thing to do.
So just because there are so many things to take care of it, there's so many pieces, you have to be wearing that many hats of thinking of yourself as a community organizer, but also then thinking
Right,
of
right,
yourself as a TikToker, or thinking of
right.
yourself. Okay, then you have to think about, okay, well, what about audio? What about video quality? What about editing? So all of these things then suddenly start to uh, uh, creep in on you, and you realize that you're wearing a million hats if you're one
Right.
person. But I would also imagine that's true for small teams, right?
Right. It's a lot. I mean, because even if you think about the content that goes on TikTok, might need to be different than what goes on Facebook.
Right.
So now you need to not only create a lot of content, but you need to do it for multiple platforms. I could
So that
definitely
then
see that
requires
being a problem.
understanding the nuances of the platforms and then why one
Right.
piece of content would work on one and not the other,
Right.
whether it's
So like,
algorithmically or whatever. Yeah.
right, like a meme would do better, maybe on Twitter or TikTok. But Facebook has an older generation, like an older audience base. So you just need to make sure you're tailoring that type of content. to the right audience.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, that is definitely a challenge.
You're saying that right now, but that could be very different in a year or in 2 years or in 3 years.
True. Things are quickly changing. Social media is a fast-paced world. Well, has created this fast-paced world that we now live in today. And to keep up with it, again, time-consuming, and it's hard to follow the trends, to be on top of the trends, not just follow them, but be ahead of the curve, right?
What's the deal with UA right now?
I mean, it's expensive. The, cost per impression rate is pretty high. Also, I know that the quality of new users that you get from doing it might not always be the best. They might play the game for 30 seconds and be done. That's not super optimal, and we want people to actually play our games, not just open it. Also, inflation is a real thing, sadly.
Right. Yeah. KOL marketing is that's paid acquisition, a type of paid acquisition, but is it
Yes.
under the umbrella of UA or is it a separate category?
Here at Yoda One, we separate it into a different category. We actually consider that organic marketing. Granted, yes, it is paid, but we do consider it organic just because the way it kind of falls and the way it works, like, yes, it's paid, but in a way, I think the organic return is higher. If that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
I feel like with UA, you can almost really expect the return of downloads, right? Like, if you're going to put X amount of money in, you can expect X amount of downloads out. You can't necessarily do that with influencer marketing. It could pop off. It could become viral. It could be the most amazing video. You might also get only 2 downloads. It's not because you're working with other people and not necessarily a system.
Maybe it's a topic for another day, but it also depends on how well you understand that influencer's audience. Because if you have
Right.
a deep understanding of their audience, then you might know the likely behavior of that audience, right? If
Right.
it's a good investment or not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also interesting because it can surprise you. Some content or some influencer that has, let's say, a tech YouTuber, right? They might do really well for a mobile game, which, maybe you're looking at KOLs just for gaming, like gamer YouTubers. So, there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts with influencer marketing, which is another reason why it can be difficult.
Let's try to sort of build out a game plan for a generic game. And we can maybe go over some examples to help flesh that out. But relatively generically, I want to talk about what are the core elements that go into a sort of comprehensive social media marketing plan, excluding UA.
To start with the plan, you need to choose what social media platforms you're going to be on. If you're new with your game, you might not even have those created. If you are doing this all by yourself, like I mentioned, I would not suggest starting every single platform. That will be too much for a single person to handle at first. Eventually, you can grow into it, but I would maybe pick 2 to start off with. So, for example, if you have a younger audience, maybe moving it to TikTok, like starting a TikTok, or if you have an older audience, maybe like Facebook, like a Candy Crush style game, right? Versus
Candy Crush is more of an older audience, generally?
Yeah. Generally, yes. I would say older women, moms typically play that style of game versus maybe something like Dumb Ways to Die, which, just blew up on TikTok. It gone viral. Lots of articles about that game. So, younger audience, their audience should have been on TikTok, which they succeeded with.
That's interesting. So I think the first step then is to take stock of your resources and the amount of time that you can actually allocate realistically, and then don't overextend yourself because you have to be consistent. Right. And so you're choosing platforms very specifically. But that calculation also has to include, well, what are your resources? If you're a team of 3, if you're a team of 6, if you're a team of 12, there's a different conversation to have. Is one person going to be dedicated to that? Or are we going to share responsibilities? It depends on the resources, right?
Right.
So you're not saying don't do everything. You're saying choose based on what you can consistently do over time.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Because even, for example, TikTok maybe requires more content than, let's say, Facebook.
Why is
TikTok,
that?
typically the algorithm on TikTok is just super fast, right? So the more videos you post, the more views you get in total, the more the algorithm picks you up. Versus Facebook, again, it's a different audience. So even typically, like, the content style is different, right? So I have found with some of our games, photos do better on Facebook versus videos, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
I wouldn't even say that for all games. I've just, in one of our games that we publish, I have found that typically has a better response rate. However, you don't post photos on TikTok. You can, but probably not going to have a high view count.
So cross-posting, is that something that everyone should do to some extent? Like YouTube Shorts, that's a thing, and Reels is a thing. So how do I know where my efforts should overlap? And I can just say, here, intern that I hired, post on all these platforms that I already posted on TikTok. Or should I be very, very specific about not doing that?
So we definitely cross-post with our games that we publish, because in a certain extent, you should, yes, is to answer your question. Like you said, YouTube Shorts and TikToks, I mostly post the same thing. However, sometimes, like, a video is more tailored to TikTok, or vice versa. It is more tailored to YouTube. And in that case, no, we don't cross-post. But for the most part, yes, we do. So we cross-post with TikTok, YouTube, and occasionally Facebook Reels, and then Instagram Reels. Yeah. And if I do make a suggestion, if you are cross-posting, do not post the video with the TikTok watermark. Honestly, it looks not polished.
What would be your game plan if you were working with someone who wanted to, build out a social media marketing strategy and was thinking about, okay, what type of content should I start with? What would be your tips for, okay, this is what you need to do in the first 2 weeks, basically, and then this is your strategy going forward?
So for the first 2 weeks, post as much as possible, because having a bare page is not gonna, like, attract more followers, right? So I would even, if you're, let's say, for example, you're starting a TikTok, I would say maybe even posting twice a day for 2 weeks. Then you can maybe slow down just a little bit, right? Yeah. Fill up the feed. So when people come to your profile, it looks like you're not a new account.
It's a sad place to be. Yeah, no one wants to see one video. That's a red flag. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that 2 weeks of posting a lot, I would use that time to try it. You're such a new account. Experiment. See what works. If it more memes, longer TikToks. You could even, try the super short, fast 6-second TikToks, like Vine style. Find what works for your game. Like I keep saying, it depends on your game and your audience.
Do you think that trend of Kinetic Sand and Subway Surfer under, for example, if there's a comedian doing their maybe a 1-minute bit about something, then they have Kinetic Sand or Subway Surfer playing also, just to make people visually focus on something? Was that something that they planned, do you think, where they just got lucky with that? Because I would imagine that Subway Surfer probably saw a pretty big boost from that trend, right?
Yes. So I'm going to be honest, the guys behind the Subway Surfer TikTok, genius. But I also will say there's 2 people behind just their TikTok.
Really?
So yes.
But did they plan that trend of it being sort of just a what is that, visual distraction, so that people stay engaged with a spoken content?
I think they tested it, right? They tried it out and it succeeded, so they rolled with it. And that's really kind of what you have to do on a platform so random, not random, but
unpredictable.
Short attention, unpredictable. That is a perfect word. Unpredictable as TikTok. Yep.
Right. That's so interesting that even, you're an expert in this and you're essentially saying, I don't know. In terms of content, you have to try stuff because there's no way to a priori go in knowing what to do. You have to test and figure it out quickly for your game.
Well, again, that comes with also because trends are changing so fast. So
Right.
something that worked last month might not work next month. So you continually have to try stuff. You know, like I keep saying, watch the trends, try and be ahead of the curve. And even I'm not saying if you did become late to the curve of whatever trend to not do it. You should still do it. Like show that you're trendy, right? You just might not have as big of a return, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so my takeaway there, if I were to just put it in my own terms that my brain can understand, number one, choose your platforms based on the resources that you can allocate. Then the stuff that you create should be responsive to what's working. So do a lot of experimentation at the start, and then quickly figure out what's working, and then maybe start dedicating more time to those things that are working, or those formats that are working.
Exactly.
And be very busy in the first 2 weeks, and then maybe think about it's okay to slow down a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, don't stop by any means.
Right.
I'm just saying. But you can scale back. You don't have to post twice every day for the rest of your life.
Let's get into KOL marketing. You said before that KOL marketing is paid, yes, but not considered to be UA because of the dynamics of KOL marketing. So my question is then, okay, same person, generic studio with game they want to promote. Social media plan, got it. What about how do we approach KOL marketing in general, and then what do we do?
All right, yes. So I'm going to be honest. It's tricky. It is not easy. And that just comes from you're working with somebody else, right? Like it's not up to you at this point anymore. It's up to the influencer, really, to sell your product. But it is up to you to try and find the right fit, which again can be tricky because so a mobile gamer YouTuber, right? There are mobile gamer YouTubers out there. They make videos on all kinds of mobile games. So what differentiates your game from all the other games they post about? Now, I'm not saying it will not have a great return, and you should definitely work with them, but you should also, again, try new things. Again, work with the tech influencers, work with lifestyle influencers, because ads that stick out to people might do better.
Right. So maybe there's sometimes a bit of a red ocean effect with those mobile game streamers or content creators where it all starts to just look like just another one of those, and the ROI is lower. But, if you ask Martha Stewart to mention you or something, then it's her first time ever talking about a game. That's not a good example. So just throwing in the first name I thought of. But, thinking outside the box, essentially.
Right.
Think about what your audience is consuming rather than assuming that you should go to a specific type of KOL, right?
Right. Yes. Also, well, I wouldn't so much focus on your current audience. Definitely look at age and gender and things like that. But kind of the goal of influencer marketing is to move to other audiences, right? Your audience already plays your game. We don't need to sell it.
Isn't that an assumption? I mean, your audience is more, well, your audience would be the people potentially who would want to play your game, right?
When I'm talking about audience, I'm definitely talking about the people who are already following your social media. So you don't want to, they are already playing your game, right? So, but I guess when you terms an audience of people who could possibly be playing your game, yes, you can definitely look for a similar type, like I said, in terms of age, gender, different styles of games they're playing. Like, for example, if you have an endless runner game, look at different, endless runner type of games. Or if you have like a party game, look at other party games and see kind of what they're doing. But I do think the point of using influencers to market your game is to move to other audiences, to share your game with people who don't know it yet. So finding an overlap of, like, for example, age, but maybe not gender, if that makes sense. So finding like one overlap versus all of the overlap, I think would have the highest return.
Well, this is a little more general than influencers specifically, but there's an interesting overlap there. We're working on a new article that we're putting out with our brands team, and we're talking about Fortnite and how Fortnite does such a good job of that, essentially, how they can figure out that, oh, wait a second, 90% of the people who watch anime also play games. Oh, okay. So there's something there. And then how do you, okay, now if we do a Fortnite Dragon Ball Z crossover, we're going to see a lot of people who would be players come check out Fortnite if they haven't played it before because they love Dragon Ball. And now they're doing the Mr. Beast one. So they're getting Mr. Beast now to share on his gaming channel.
You can pick the biggest influencer you can pick to work with Mr. Beast, but that's obviously way more expensive than working with smaller influencers. And my suggestion was don't always go for the big guy. Smaller influencers, they can have very reliable and quality fan bases. And if, for example, streamers, right? Streamers have a very, very, very reliable fan base because these streamers hang out with their audience for 8 hours a day, for example. Streamers are almost like friends to these people. So
who needs friends when you're a simp?
You have a streamer, right? Yeah, kind of.
No, I'm not saying that's true for everybody because it's just that's the stereotype anyway.
Right. Let's an example. You would probably have a higher return on a smaller base streamer. Maybe they have 50 views at a time, concurrent viewers, versus a TikToker with $1 million. So that is definitely something to think about in terms of when you're looking to work with influencers, because there's influencers for every platform, right? YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, all of the above, Twitter.
Yeah.
I have found from my own experience, the TikTok return in terms of influencers is not very high. I'm not saying it can't be. So if you are doing influencer marketing, I would mainly focus on YouTube and Twitch or another streamer platform, like there's Facebook streaming. Another thing about streamers is the quality of the downloads that they bring in will likely be pretty high, and especially maybe in comparison to UA.
There's two levels to that. Right. One is the paid level, right? The other level is everyone's playing Among Us or everyone's playing Minecraft or something else that people just naturally want to play. It's different than paying a influencer.
That's another awesome point. So of course, you can do individual influencer marketing, right? You can find this one guy, Hobie brings in 100 downloads, X amount of downloads. But you could also look at the approaches trying to make your game popular on Twitch, right? So, there's like the browse section of Twitch, right? And you want your game to be played by a lot of people. So then you can work with a lot of smaller streamers and then in hopes of having your game go higher on the browse section to where you'll, like you keep saying, you'll get more organic.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, and about reaching out to them and that sort of thing. Again, I think we could have another conversation diving into the actual approach for reaching out to an influencer and thinking about budgets and how to know, how to approach that, the money question, all of that. But I want to get into community quickly. So where does community fit in all of this? And then specifically, again, generic game, studio, thinking about this, trying to build a game plan. How do we start? We've got a pretty good idea for social media posting and content. We've got a pretty good idea for KOLs, at least a strategy for that. What about community building?
Right. So community, I would arguably say, is one of the most important things you can do for your game, right? So the thing about the content and the social media and the influencer, that's to get new players into your game. But you can't forget about your old players. You can't forget about the original guys who started playing your game. You have to do something for them too. Look at Fortnite. they have in-house concerts in their game for their community. And what that does is, well, first of all, you bring people into your game for, that time. Bringing people into your game, always a win. But
Right.
also to create a place for your community to go and bond with other community members, right? To have a place for them to share what they love about the game, to build hype for a new update. Like a new skin is coming out, like make your community excited, and then in return you would have a higher success rate on that skin.
Yeah, so that would be why to do it, right? It's
Right.
extremely valuable from an engagement standpoint and a longevity standpoint. But what's the actual tactical approach, if that makes sense? So that seems like a very big challenge. I'm already feeling extremely overwhelmed about everything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, like I said, it's a lot. It is all a lot for
It's a
sure.
lot.
It's a lot, yes.
Stressing me out.
It's yeah, why I have a job. So there's a couple ways you can manage your community, of course. You can use social media platforms, which I obviously encourage, but there is a problem with that. Not everybody has social media. My suggestion would be to also have a in-game communication tool, which is not social media, but it can help in terms of pushing events. You can push people to your social media. A Discord is a great community tool.
Is that
Or
sort of
Reddit.
the go-to now at Discord, just because it has so many community tools beyond a chat or beyond social media? Posting on Twitter, for example, is very I say it, you listen, as opposed to Discord, which is
Right.
an ongoing conversation, right?
PC gamers tend to be more on Discord rather than, mobile game users. And I'm not saying
Right.
that's necessarily true for every game, but your Candy Crush moms probably don't have a Discord.
No
So
way.
in that sense, Facebook is your option. Facebook is your answer. So, but again, they might not have Facebook. So, I guess creating multiple places for your community to reach out to you is the answer. So, by adding more, you're kind of adding more work to yourself, but you do also want to make sure that you're available to as many people as you can be.
So you would say, okay, is it better to? I think what you're saying is don't hyper focus, um, but also, I mean, you need to find a way to be responsive, because if you're hyper focused and
Right.
say, if you want to interact, this is where it happens, then the
Right.
downside of that is you're missing a reasonably sized slice of your player base who are not benefiting
Right.
from the community. So you're
Right.
saying, if you can do it, have something in the game where there is a way to interact and share and get
With your community.
updates,
Yeah.
and then do several other things. I guess
Right.
that's maybe Discord, maybe Facebook, maybe Twitter,
Right.
um, and just that's extra work that's probably worth it. You have to give
Mm.
yourself that extra work. Just do it. Just stop complaining and
Right.
do it.
Yeah, kinda. Um, but also, like, it does sound like a lot of work, but in a
It
way, if
does.
you're already posting to Facebook, you're
Yeah.
already reading the comments, if that makes
Right.
sense. Like, you're
Yeah.
already reading the DMs. So it's just another way or another reason to have that social media and at the long term. But
And
I
I
do
believe there are
suggest,
also ways to aggregate things so that you can have multiple platforms in a centralized place so that you can read all the comments and respond. I don't want to
yes,
promote anyone specifically, but that is a thing.
yeah, there's several platforms and services out there that do things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they also can give you some analytics, which might be helpful if you're not one
Mm.
into looking into analytics on your own, like social media. They can kind of give it all to you there in one place. So I definitely would suggest looking out to those or looking into those. But another great thing about community and what you can do with it is you can host events, right? So this is an
Right.
example. For one of our games, we actually hosted a design competition. This was so much fun for our community in whole. We had thousands and thousands of entries, which is just, first of all, really heartwarming to know that people are taking the time to design a skin, which is what the competition was for. It was a design competition for a skin that was going to be featured into the game.
Let's start from the beginning.
Right.
how did you structure it so that you got the maximum impact? Where did you share it? And then, yeah, and then what did it do?
So we have our in-game forum that I suggest someone should have something like, if not this. We use KT Play. And so we posted it there, and that is actually where people also submitted their entries. So they just responded to a thread on the forum, and that's how the
Did that go
entries
out
were.
on any other socials, or it was only in
It went
game?
out on all the socials.
Okay.
Um, so it went out first, of course, on KT Play, and then like maybe 24 hours later, it went out on all the socials.
Okay.
Um, and then from there, every 4 days, we would repost about it, if not sooner than that. And not only would we repost about it, we would post entries of people. So they
What was the
kind of
incentive?
the incentive. So you had a participation reward, and it was some in-game currency, some gold. There was a finalist, so we also, there was thousands of entries, so we had a finalist list, and then we also let our community vote on the final,
Nice.
like the
Very
final
cool.
person.
That's cool.
So I think you got more gold and maybe a skin for being in the top, I think it was 10, 15 entries. And then the winner got something really big, and then also their skin was in the game. So it was,
Literally.
yeah, yes. We actually had two winners, and they're both in the game. It's the Cyber T Rex and the Draconic T Rex or something like that.
So they're literally
Um,
putting some skin in the game.
yes, and it was so well received. They absolutely loved it. And we even had like the people who did win the competition, they made YouTube videos about it, not prompted. We didn't ask them to do this. Like they
Right.
did this all on their own, and they like showed their process of making the design and like how proud they were that it was in the game. And
That is
honestly,
so
it was just really
cool.
great.
And it feeds more than two birds with one stone. It's accomplishing so much
Yes.
because then we could. Did you generate content from the
Oh yeah.
submissions? I would have.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so the publishing team is generating content, connecting people together in the game, getting them to share about it organically,
Yep.
generating buzz around an event, getting people to share stuff. So it's accomplishing so much with one thing.
Ultimately, it's also just really great to do events like that because you're giving people another reason to think about your game without having to play your game. So,
Right.
like, let's say, oh, like I'm making this T Rex skin right now, but then, like, after that, I'm going to go play the game because I've been thinking about the game.
Well, so I think we've covered pretty well content strategy, KOL marketing, community. At least we've got some really good ideas that you could start putting into place in your own way. We talked about how community can impact longevity, but let's talk about longevity. Maybe we can get into some specific examples. I know that there are games like one of the games we published, Rodeo Stampede. That game has been going strong for what, 7 years?
Yes, the sixth
Yeah,
birthday was in June, so it's like 6.5.
it's going on 7, right?
Right.
So, and maybe we can get into some other examples. Let's try to tie it all together to talk about how executing on a really good social media marketing plan, let's say including community, including KOL marketing, can
Right.
lead to that longevity that we obviously want, to have a player base that's consistent, stable, always there, right?
Right. So obviously, there's a lot of things that go into keeping your community alive. Like, you can't do all of this social media work and not have updates and expect your community to still live on. So there's a lot of steps that you need to obviously take, and all the ones that we've already mentioned. Um, but the outcome can be really awesome. Like, look at Clash of Clans. They have been, what? Did they just celebrate their 10th year anniversary? Like, that's crazy. And people have been playing that game for 10 years. 10 years of full on, gaming updates and everything, and having those people play for 10 years is incredible. With Rodeo Stampede, I get comments on like every single TikTok saying like, "Oh, I've been playing this game since it came out." So to have those players still playing our game, like, first of all, it feels good. Like it's nice to know that they stuck
It's a
around,
warm and
right?
fuzzy feeling. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
But I mean, also it's, good for a lot of reasons.
It's also not an accident, which is
Right.
important to recognize.
Right.
Nothing
And
is an accident. Clash of Clans, Rodeo Stampede,
right.
Pokemon Go,
Pokemon
these
Go.
are they've achieved that for a reason with specific
Right.
activities, right?
Pokemon Go is a super interesting example too because they are the kings of like keeping their game alive because it was so popular when it first came out, right? And it kind of
People have
died
this
off.
perception that it died, but it's not that it died. It went crazy, and then it
Viral,
reached.
right? And guess
Oh,
what? Those people that were still played after the peak are still playing.
right.
Which because again, constant new content, whatever. But also they really worked with their influencers. They had people who they were already making videos about the game. Which if you have that, that's really great. Obviously, some people don't have that, but they worked with them.
Broader Pokemon influencers, or specifically Pokemon Go
Pokemon Go
related influencers.
Pokemon Go
And it,
influencers.
I forgive me if I've not seen a lot of Pokemon Go content. I try to consume a lot of stuff, but unfortunately, I'm not familiar with it. Is it them walking around collecting a rare Pokemon? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it is
pretty
mostly?
much. So in a way, like now how their videos kind of started, it was almost vlog style, but they were catching Pokemon.
Okay,
Like they would
I can
like
see
do
how
their
that would be
lives.
good content.
You're right. But also what Pokemon Go did, and this is different than a lot of other mobile games, they would fly those influencers all around the world to catch all these different types of
That's so
Pokemon. Because
cool.
I don't know, like regions are different, like you can
Hmm.
catch different Pokemon in different regions.
There are actually super rare ones, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. So they would fly these influencers all over the world to catch all these Pokemon. But also, with doing that, they would hold events in these places where anybody can go,
Mm.
right? So, like, you can buy a ticket, Pokemon Go Fest, huge, huge. People love that. And I think they do one in America, they do one in Japan, I think they do a couple other places, like maybe one in Europe. Um, so, not only are you creating content, also, I mean, you have to pay for the influencers, but they're making the content, not you. Like you don't have to do that.
How do we distill that? And maybe you can tie in Clash of Clans and Rodeo if you want here too, but how do we distill that into the practical takeaways, that because that's not having a giant fest and flying people
Right.
around the world in business class is not doable if you're
Right. A smaller game. Right.
a
This is
smaller
a,
game.
a
Yeah.
big example. Right.
Right,
Um,
right,
and with, they kind of saw a decrease with COVID because they were not able to do things like that
right.
anymore.
Yeah.
So then that's where things like Fortnite come in. You can do an online event, right? Like the concerts, which again, big example, but you can maybe do it on a smaller scale, like a Discord event or even an in-game event.
Is
And
Clash of Clans doing a lot of things like that too?
oh yeah, for sure. And they also have a lot of
And
streamers
Rodeo?
playing, which is Rodeo. We're working on it. I guess my suggestion is to try and find these influencers because you can find influencers who are already playing your game. Arbs has them. Rodeo Stampede also has them. And I didn't ask them to do that. They just did it on their own
That's
because
interesting.
it's a game. Of course, that doesn't happen with everything, but typically you can find a KOL that has like you can find a smaller KOL and work with them. You might have to help them grow. You might have to push, some of your viewers to their viewers. But once you establish that relationship and get a solid KOL who will work with you, a lot of the times you don't even have to pay them. So then they're like kind of making content.
They like that they're making content, and maybe
Right.
you're giving them early access to things, special things
Early
that they get.
access, with ARBs, we give them the in-game content for free. So like
Got
we
it.
give them lots of gold skins, new skins, things like that. We give them early access. We give them information, new information that's upcoming, so they can kind of tease it.
That's cool. That's cool. So it kind of ties into, especially the community aspect of events happening and having influencers constantly talking about it, making content about it.
Right.
It ties it together really
Right.
well. Those are interesting examples. But again, also you want to consider the scale, right? So
Right.
you would say working with a reliable, stable influencer who may be growing, may be better
Right.
than just sort of finding one-off influencers, paying them and hoping that it's going to work, right?
I would consider them two different things,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
you have your paid influencers who don't usually play your game. They don't usually post your game. But then you have your influencers who are posting your game. And a lot of times, like they're already posting, so you won't have to pay them. Like you might give them, for example, ARBs were giving Steam keys, which you can then do as a giveaway. So it's more of kind of payment like that. So I would definitely consider them two separate entities. They can be used for different
Interesting.
things.
That's very interesting. Okay. Okay. But that's sort of building out um, the universe around your game, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
looking at it like a constellation of things that are all interconnected, working together to move this thing into the culture and allow
right,
that to have its sort of grab hold of it and have some
right.
momentum, right?
Exactly.
One of the things that I've been saying throughout is that as a hypothetical developer in this scenario, you're giving me all of this great advice and these tips, but it's giving me anxiety,
It's a lot.
and it's a lot to think about. Geez, I just want to make my game and release some fresh content once in a while. I don't want to have to think about this. Uh, at what point do I look for help? And then what kind of help should I look for?
Well, okay, so the thing with social media is there's so many levels to help, right? So you could get help in terms of having a platform that you can schedule out and it'll post automatically for you.
Yeah.
Which is a great option if you're low budget, super new, just released your game. If you have a little bit of a budget and you have a little bit of more of
Just a monthly fee probably, but worth it for
right,
the convenience.
right.
Are you talking
You
about
can
scheduling posts and managing comments, that sort of thing, right?
Yes, and you can also find people to make content. So making content is, as you know, very time consuming. Filming,
Oh, it's not for
editing.
me.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, music, finding music that is
Right.
copyright free in a lot of instances, and what type of content, knowing streaming versus TikToks versus static content like you know post for Facebook, pictures. You can find people to help you with just that. You can find freelancers if that's what you're just looking for. You can find bigger companies like us. We have a very customizable social media package, so we can help with like a lot of different needs. And that's because social media it is so customizable, right? There's so many layers. There's so much that can be done. So many different platforms. Um,
But
and
are
then
you looking so basically evaluating where you need help? It might be a matter of I think I can handle everything except I'm not really good at making videos, and so I'm going to just hire someone on some platform to do it as
right.
a freelancer versus the whole thing overwhelms me. I think my game could really grow with something bigger. Then you might
Right.
look to
Right.
someone like Yoda One
Someone
for
like
that.
us. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I like to say that we are a one-stop shop. So we can do it all. Um, and we can even do a little bit, right? So something like Yoda One, we have a lot of tools at our disposal, right?
Yeah. Been doing it
So
for over 10 years as well.
right, we have a little bit of information in our pocket. Versus maybe a freelancer might only be good at doing one thing, right? And they might not have all the tools and they might not also have all the information. They might. You might find a great freelancer, but then typically those freelancers are a little bit pricey. It depends on what stage you are with your game. Of course, I'm going to say, really you need to look at what you want. If you like making content but you don't like posting, there's different options for you. And a lot of the time, for like I said, for example, our service is super customizable. So,
Right.
if you are looking for just posting, but you have the content made or you need it all, or you just want influencer marketing or you just want
Okay, so
community
like,
management.
so finding an influencer to work with, that would be another one of the things that I might
Yes.
be able to do. That's cool.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's something you could even find as a freelancer. Like, maybe. I haven't really looked, to be honest.
A freelancer to help you find
Right.
yeah, probably not, but who
Right.
knows.
Which we have, like, I'm doing a campaign right now with a game that we don't full publish, and I'm helping them with influencer marketing. And that's all I'm helping them with. Right.
Right.
So it's very customizable. There's a
But if
lot
they
we
wanted
can
to
do.
do KOL marketing plus they wanted someone to help them run a community, including engagement and responding to stuff, that would be on the table as well.
Yes, for sure.
So it's very,
Definitely.
very bespoke, which is cool.
Yes. We have to be, almost, in a sense, because so many different platforms, so many different stages, trends are changing every day. You know, there isn't one thing that works for everybody, like we've mentioned. So, and you have to do different things. We have to be able to help you in different ways.
And I would just add to that, maybe speaking a little bit more broadly about the company, uh, you're also kind of accessing a strategic viewpoint
Right.
because you have a publisher who's been, over 1.5 billion players, and doing this stuff for 10 years, then taking some of those insights and applying it to what you need for social media. And
Right.
that is
Right.
a big part.
So exactly, if you're just like, oh, I need a social media manager, I'm going to go look on Fiverr. They will do the job for you, and you might have success with them. But looking for a bigger company, a bigger, partner in this, would you would have more tools at your disposal because we have more tools.
Makes sense. Well, I think this has been so many insights in this conversation. One of my
Right.
takeaways from this conversation is I knew it intellectually, but you talking me through it made it really hit home. This is one you think you have solid ground beneath your feet, but as soon as you think that, you don't anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
In every
Don't put all
area.
your eggs in one basket. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in branding and organic marketing and in UA, anything can happen. Look at
Right.
COVID, you know?
Yeah, you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen,
Exactly.
and you, staying on top of everything is pretty daunting sometimes. But as you
Yeah,
said,
for sure.
you can be strategic. I don't think you're saying, well, okay, so the only answer is to not do it yourself. You're saying, be strategic and know
Right.
what you can do. Make an
Right.
evaluation based on your resources and what's working for your game. Okay, Facebook isn't working for you. This type of posts, this type of content's not working for you. Iterate
Right.
until you find what is working and then focus in on that and follow
Right.
success, right?
Though I will say, if you do find something that is working, obviously continue doing that, but don't be afraid to try new things either.
Right. Yeah.
Because again,
Yeah.
always changing.
Yeah, you got to have your feelers out there.
Right. You gotta, I'm not test every day, like still have your normal repetitive content, but also, throw in a new style of video every now and then. See what happens. You never know. Might be your new golden egg.
Well, Sandy, thank you so much for doing this. This has been great. Those watching, listening, thank you so much for listening and watching. And let us know if there's any other content you want us to cover, any other topics you want us to cover, and see you in the next one.
Goodbye, everybody.